What's going on, everybody? This is Jerome Moore, host and creator of Deep Dish Conversations. And firstly, I want to say thank you for all love and support, and thank you for exploring the perspectives of social change with me on this platform. I want to encourage you all to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast listen platform. And make sure you give us a 5-star rating if you're loving the Deep Dish Conversations. I appreciate all of the support again. I hope you all enjoy this episode.
This is deep dish, right?
Yeah, well, let's get deep.
So I'm going deep on both sides.
Welcome to another episode, or interview, I would say, just in general. It's a little different, you know. But we have District 2 Council Member Kyonzte Toombs here. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, thank you for being here. And I must say, I got to say this for the record. You know, Kyonzte came in, peanut butter, leather jacket. You see the fit on. She was floating down the walkway. I said, we interviewed this as a shoot from photo shoot we doing. But now, how's everything been? 2022, new year, still dodging all these variants, viruses.
It's been pretty busy. Yeah, we're barely 2 months in, and it's been pretty busy just trying to get everything organized and stay on top of things.
Yeah, you just with your role as council member, y'all, it has been a lot of heat going on around our council members, going just dating back to this. I just think with the pandemic in general, I think it's been probably enhanced pressure, you know, our council members here in Nashville, what I would love to get into a little bit later on. But for people who don't know, Kyonzte, like what got you into wanting to be a part of the law, legal system, that inspiration to even just want to serve your community?
Yeah. So I have wanted to be a lawyer since about 3rd grade.
You was one of those kids.
I'm one of those kids.
Go ahead and scoot down for me, Kaden.
Yeah.
His knee came up on the side. My bad.
Okay.
Go ahead, you can pick it up for me.
So I've wanted to be a lawyer since 3rd grade. And that's just in learning more about our history as Black people and what role lawyers played in getting a lot of the civil rights advances that Black people have experienced over the decades. And so I wanted to be a part of that. As I got a little bit older, learned more about the criminal justice system and how it disproportionately impacted Black folks. And so I wanted to be, when I went to law school, I wanted to be a public defender because I was going to fight for the people.
Right.
And so as far as my legal career, that changed. And I think that had a large part to do in what law school I went to. I went to Vanderbilt Law School, which was very corporate law focused.
Right.
And so once you get in that environment, you become corporate law focused and go after the big bucks. And so that's what I pursued, but then ended up working for the state, which I get to help people every day in terms of health care and like long-term care and things like that.
Right.
And then being a council person also gives me an avenue to fight for the people.
Right.
And I try to do that every day.
And so, if you had to do it over, would you go back and do public defender? Be a public defender?
No, and I say that because for a while for a year I practiced on my own.
Okay.
And I did family law, and I did a lot of juvenile court work, and I represented children who were in delinquency cases.
Okay.
And that really left a sour taste in my mouth, just because the system was so tilted towards finding them delinquent. Like, perfectly good kids, just got into a little trouble. And some of it was minor trouble. Like, you know, back in the day, you pulled the fire alarm, you got detention.
Right.
Like, now they're sending you to court. You know?
That's crazy.
Like, you're having to go through the court system like you've committed some serious crime. One of my cases, kids were horse playing, and one of the little boys, unknown to him, he had some issue in his brain.
Oh.
And so the horse playing aggravated that, and so he had some serious health effects.
Wow.
And you know, his mother, this her baby, she wants somebody to be held accountable.
Right.
And so ended up my client, who was only a 12-year-old boy, ended up being held accountable for that and adjudicated delinquent, where they were just playing. Like, how can you end up in court for just playing? Even the kid who ended up hurt, he was like, we were just playing.
Right.
And so I knew then I didn't really have the stomach for that because that took a lot out of me doing those types of cases. I am more of a policy person.
Right.
Up top, how can we change the system
Right.
so that it has more of a positive impact on people?
Right. I'm glad you brought up policy because, like, I think that'd be the root causes really for a lot of things. Like, I think it's easy for us to like attack the person, right?
Mhm.
But it's really the policies that kind of control or perpetuate some of the systemic discrimination or whatever it may be that happens in our communities.
Right.
Now, for people who may not know, being a council member. Take us through a day in the life of a council member here in Nashville.
So I think a lot of people think that council members are full-time.
Y'all not,
Like
well,
that
y'all not full time.
That's the only job we have. We sit
Right.
in the council office all day, and we have a full staff that helps us handle our council business. Completely false. The vast majority of the folks on council also have a I guess on the books full-time job. Because I'll
Right.
say being a council member is a full-time job, even though we don't get paid for that. We don't have the resources or staff to support a full-time position. But I was at my day job today, had some training to do, had some meetings. I'm here with you. And then I got a meeting with my boss right after this, and I'm going to do the rest of my work for the day, and then probably return some phone calls for council in the evening. So it's intertwining whatever your other full-time job is with what your council responsibilities are. Because in order to do the council job well, you have to commit the hours.
Right.
This is not a 10 hours a week
Right.
position. It's at least 30 hours, and you try to.
It's another job.
Yeah, it's
job.
another job. It is
Right.
definitely a job, and you want to be responsive to people. I accept interviews, I accept invitations to events because I want to be supportive and be present in
Right.
the community.
Right. How do you keep that balance? Because many people may know you more of the council member for District 2, Kyonzte Toombs, other than the attorney, the lawyer. How do you balance that to the daily life?
The best I can. I mean, I am really going from one thing to the next throughout the day. Like I said, I had a training this morning. I had a meeting after that. I'm coming to this. I have another meeting after that. I have to really keep my calendar tight.
Right.
Sometimes I do double book myself, and I'm like, I'm sorry. That's why I tried to move this time, but you wouldn't let me.
Look, if he didn't accept this like a month and a half ago, I would have understood. But don't see me even at 3 in the morning. I don't know what's going on at 3 in the morning. Now, what's going on? But nah. I appreciate you for squeezing me, working it out for me.
But yeah, I just do the best I can. I have small children and a husband as well, so making sure I have time for them. So
Right. That's a lot. And so I know being a council member sometimes not the easiest thing, easiest position and thing to do, especially because we see you. We can see you at the Kroger, the gas station, and at that particular moment, depending on how we might feel, we can broach you. You might not feel like being broached at that particular moment, right? And another layer to that is you're a black woman, and black folks, from my perspective, we tend to be a little harder on our elected officials, our council persons. Anybody that we feel they got some power in the community, we tend to hold them on a pedestal compared to other ethnic groups that may be in our community may have that same power. How do you balance and navigate that?
So I think when you're on council, you're always on. If I don't want to be on, I don't leave the house. So you always have to be willing to be receptive to folks, to have conversations. I think as far as expectations, the expectations are high, especially when you're a black council person in a majority black district.
Right.
I think sometimes folks think you can do more than what you can, just because they're just sick and tired of things not being just or being equitable. And so I try to listen to the variety of viewpoints that are in my district, because everybody does not think the same. We're majority black, but all black folks don't think the same.
Right.
And so just listening to the different viewpoints and trying to find consensus, and then charting my path based off that consensus.
And I want to, before I like get deep into that, I want to go back to something you said. Is like, you know, many people think y'all can do more or have more power than what actually you all have the capability to do. Can you break down to us like what actually can a council person do? Like what is that power? What does that look like for people who may say, well, I need Kyonzte to change these policies, change these laws, and she's not doing it. But it's deeper than that. So help us understand like the actual power that you have with your seat in council.
So the city has the powers that the state gives to us.
Right.
And so a lot of actions that we take, the state can preempt it, meaning they pass a law that says you can't do that.
Right.
So take, for example, affordable housing. In 2015, before I got into office, the council passed an inclusionary zoning bill, which would require for certain developments a certain percentage had to be affordable housing. Great victory for affordable housing. State said, no, you can't do that.
Right.
And so that's where our power is limited. Criminal justice reform, when you're talking about criminal laws, those are state laws. So
Right.
you're looking at your state legislators to change those things. What we try to do on the local level is, there's certain local fees and fines that we charge. We can change that.
Right.
So it's like we have to work within the confines of what we can do. Property tax relief. The state, and actually state constitution dictates how that program looks. We can't change it on the
Right.
local level.
Right.
And so it's just our authority is limited. Like we do, how development goes, we do have a lot of control over that because we do control like rezonings and things like that. We do control city services. That's our main thing. Local city services, we have the most control over. When you're talking about a lot of the system changes that people want to see, that's really on the state level.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. And so as a council member, how could you use your voice at that state level to influence, state legislation? Like, hey, I know y'all thinking about this, but, at least have to say something and say, hey, my constituents in my community, this is not what they want, or this won't benefit them.
So the city has a lobbyist that works with the state legislators. So our lobbying team keeps us abreast of what the significant legislation is that impacts the city.
Right.
And that team works probably more closely with the mayor's office because the mayor is full-time
Right.
and has a staff.
Right.
And so they work more closely with him and his staff as far as how we feel as a city about certain legislation, and those lobbyists will communicate that to the sponsors of those varying legislation. And we try to work with our local Davidson County delegation, but those are all Democrats. We're a progressive city,
Right.
super majority Republican state.
Right.
So sometimes that's an uphill battle, but there are some instances where we can work across the aisle and work together and prevent some things that would be detrimental to Nashville.
How does the redistricting of Davidson County affect your job and what you can and can't do, or things that may be preempted at this point at the state level?
So on the local level, I don't think it impacts purely local issues as much because Davidson County is still majority progressive.
Right.
Most people on the council are probably still going to be progressive, or at least a big section of them will be progressive. On the federal level, where we're going to have 3 congressional districts, they're predicting that those will be all Republican-held seats when Davidson County has always been a Democratic held seat. So that's going to be a significant change if you're looking to national politics.
Right.
And so it will be more difficult for minorities to have a voice, I think, in national politics. Hopefully that changes. I mean, we've come through a lot over the centuries that we've been in this country, and we tend to overcome obstacles that get put in our way. So I think that in the long run, we'll find a way to get over this hurdle, but in the short run, it is going to, I think, be kind of detrimental to a lot of the things that we want to see in our communities.
Now I want to go back to the blackness thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, black folks tend to be harder
Yeah.
on black folks
Mm-hmm.
in the position that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Has your blackness ever been questioned due to a decision you made or didn't make?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How does that make you how does that make you feel?
Really, just to be totally honest, it's fighting words. It's fighting words to question a black person's blackness. But as a council person, as a professional, like, I gotta keep it cool.
Right.
You know, and people, when they are upset or feel very passionate about an issue, I mean, a lot of them are gonna come at you hard.
Right.
You know, when we were doing the budget, and I was budget chair, a big issue that came up was how we fund police.
Right.
And there are people who want to completely defund the police, and that means different things for different people. Some people, that means completely getting rid of police as we know it, and some folks that means reallocating resources to different things. And then again, going back to my majority black district with people with differing opinions, you say defund the police, a lot of the folks in my district are like, you're out of your mind.
Right.
I don't support that. And so you have to balance those different viewpoints. But I will say that the folks who were defund, take away half the police budget were very loud.
Right.
I know one comment someone called me, said that my substitute budget was represented white supremacy.
Wow.
And then, which I'm like, okay,
Right.
you know, because you know, in the substitute, we were giving more money to the schools, giving more money to the libraries, to the community centers, just trying to do things that we set up the grant for the violence interruption. We gave money for the mental health cooperative that does the pilot, that's currently doing the pilot with MMPD. And so the substitute budget that passed through council was designed to reallocate resources.
Right.
Which is a large part of the argument for defunding the police, reimagining public safety. But I knew, from my own majority black district, I don't have the political support for taking big chunks of money from the police budget.
Right.
So I knew I could not do that, and I personally don't think that's the way to go, but I do agree with reallocating resources and putting more resources into mental health, education, community programs, all those things, and that's what I did. And so it was difficult to hear, you know, folks questioning, you know, your blackness, you're anti-black, you're, you know, doing things that are going to hurt minority communities.
What would be I guess a different approach that you would appreciate more if I'm a black person specifically, and I feel like some of the things, well, especially financially or policies that you may be for are anti-black, or I feel like it's kind of not equitable compared to other, or the effect won't be equitable compared to what happened to other ethnic groups. What would be the best approach then that you would appreciate for communities, members that may be in your district or not be in your district, to kind of broach you about?
I am open to having a conversation with anybody. I'll sit down with any group. I'll come to a meeting, sit on a panel, whatever you want me to do to have a conversation. So it's not, for me personally, it's not necessary to yell at me or, you know, call me out of my name. Just have a conversation and be open to, I'm going to be open to listening to you, and I need you to be open to listening to me, because the way I vote on things, like, I don't pull that out of the air. Like, that is coming from my constituents who have different viewpoints, and I'm trying to balance all those viewpoints.
how can community members, your constituents, and this is just not for you, but just anybody that want to reach out to their council member in their district, you know, can you break down that power that us as community members have to, you know, influence our council member to like, hey, we really, you know, really want to do this or really want to do that? Because I think a lot of people just either don't know who their council member is or just don't reach out to them, right? They just, or her, right? Him or her.
Yeah.
And so, can you really break down the importance of like that reaching out and building that relationship with your council member and what they can do for issues when they come up? If you already have that relationship built with your council member and being able to get their ear and say, hey, this is what I see. This is some of the research I may have done. I feel like the effects, how they can probably go a long way.
So one of the benefits of our council being so large with 40 folks is that we have a smaller constituency that we have to govern. So every district has roughly about 20,000 people. You look at other cities and folks are over like 100,000 people. I don't know how to communicate with 100,000 people.
Right.
But with it being such a small area, you have more access to your council person. So really an email works.
Okay.
And we read email. What may not get read is the anonymous email or the chain email where everybody says exactly the same thing. Once I've read 20 of those, I know what they say. But I do look to see the name and the address.
Okay.
If that is my constituent, I'm reaching out to that person directly. Let's have a conversation.
Okay.
Calling me on the phone. Oftentimes I answer the phone, I return all my phone calls. If someone's watching this and I didn't, call me back. But yeah, you really do have a lot of influence over your council person because that's where we get our ideas from our constituents. That's how we know how our district feels about an issue, and that's going to guide how we vote.
Well, speaking on issues, right? The council members, y'all been on the hot seat since the pandemic. It's just been a lot going down in meetings and things like that. And just recently, right, we had the license plate readers, which, you know, was passed by the majority of the council members for the 6-month pilot that was going down. And so, at first, you was, you know, for license plates and readers, and then you voted against the bill.
Right.
Can you take us through that process on your initial thoughts on how you felt it would be something that the city needed, and your constituents and your community would benefit from, to like, maybe, you know, it's not right. It's not the right tool, or it's not how the bill is written. I would even say it's not right for what we need right now in Nashville.
So one of the primary complaints I get in my district is like complaints about speeding, complaints about dumping, and folks will ask me, can we get a couple of cameras on this street so we can catch these people? Right. And I get requests for cameras a lot. And so the license plate readers were initially to address drag racing.
Right.
And then other council members who were also interested in license plate readers added additional things to it. And so based off the initial feedback from my district and knowing the complaints that I get in my district, I was a sponsor of that initial bill because I felt like it's a 6-month pilot. I did not support just we're going to do license plate readers with no boundaries or anything. I didn't think that was appropriate. But I felt like a 6-month pilot, we can look at the data, we can see if it was disproportionately impacting certain communities, and we can use that data to determine if we're going to move forward with it or not. And the license plate reader, it's probably about a year that it was pending in the council, and we had different amendments and revisions to it. And then this last couple of months, it was just like a resurgence of folks, you know, coming out and speaking against it. And a lot of the commentary that I was reading and receiving was, you know, from Black people questioning other Black people who are supporting license plate readers.
Right.
Basically saying that those Black folks who are in support were anti-Black, and to me it just really became contentious within the black community.
Right.
And that was not my intent for the bill.
Right.
And so, me personally, I didn't want to be a part of that.
Right.
And so that's why I took my name off as a sponsor, and I ultimately voted against it because the conversation had taken a turn that I wasn't happy about. And I didn't think that it was productive for my community.
Right. And then I seen, because you put out a statement,
Mm-hmm.
and I seen that you had said, is it Haynes Garden or Haynes Manor? You had said, I can't remember, it's a community, I think maybe in your district, that provided the cameras themselves.
Oh, Haynes Park. They're
Haynes
in
Park.
District 1 right now.
Yeah, they're in District 1. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they had, I guess they funded the cameras
They
for
did.
themselves.
Mhm.
And you said you advocated like, hey, maybe more communities should do this if they really want
Right,
it.
right.
And that, that comes out their pocket as community, which I feel like is okay. If, it's accountability. People want to go in. It's your community.
Right.
Right. Do for your community if you really want this. So I thought that was a really great idea and a great example. And I want to pivot this to, do you see? They hear, right? they hear, but do you see a way where the LPRs could be written bill-wise in a way that does maybe have some of those guardrails that I've seen other people really advocating for? I wasn't the one that's saying, I don't think they could be an asset to the community, but maybe as written, it needed some things to maybe reassure community that it won't lead to something else, like facial recognition, or where's the data going, who's going to be collecting data, and where these LPRs primarily going to be at, based on how a city is, geographically designed.
So I think there will be a lot of tweaks to it. There are actually 3 bills that have been introduced. They'll be on first reading at the next council meeting, so you won't actually hear any discussion until the next meeting when they're on second reading. But there are 3 bills that have been introduced. One to give the Community Oversight Board more input. Another one was to prevent the use of LPR data for immigration enforcement. And then there was a third one, I believe, attempting to protect personally identifiable information.
Okay.
And so I anticipate that there'll probably be other bills as well, tweaking it and trying to fine tune it.
Right. Okay. Perfect. And Nashville is growing, right? We've seen a lot of gentrification, seen a lot of growth, and I think we're seeing some efforts to preserve as well. But with this growth comes affordable housing issues, how you mentioned earlier, and just development in general, right? How do you see these areas playing a part in your district? 'Cause I know, I grew up in your district, grew up on Tucker Road, and I see Clarksville Highway, right? So I have my worries of what's going on, what's happening. I'm pretty sure others just want to know, right?
Yeah.
So can you break that down for us of just your district specifically, and I guess Nashville in general, affordable housing crisis, and then like how that affects your district and the developers, and just looks like capitalism in a lot of ways here that can displace people or can price people out, poor people, black and brown people specifically.
So one of the reasons that I ran for council is because I saw that our community that we live in, that the development was coming, and I felt like we needed to have someone in place who could make sure that was smart development, that it didn't displace people, that it preserved the history of the area. And so as council person, I've tried to concentrate new development along those major corridors. So Clarksville Highway, West Trinity Lane, Dickerson Road, like those areas are going to look different. Because that's just how development works. It's new, it's change. But by concentrating it along the corridors, my goal is to preserve those established neighborhoods. And then there's some neighborhoods that want historical overlays, like Haynes Heights. It has a historical overlay now, so it will always look the way that it looks. And that neighborhood goes way back to the 50s. And there are other neighborhoods like that as well, that are historic neighborhoods. When there are larger developments in the district, I try to, with the help of the community, make sure that it's not just a developer's coming in, they're gonna build their project and that's it. It's what are you doing for the community as a whole? And there are different interests in the community. A lot of people like to get out and walk, so are you doing walking trails? Are you contributing to the schools in the area? Who's working on your project? Are you employing people? Folks who are going to sell condos or homes. Are you working with black realtors?
Right.
So there's a variety of different things that developers can do to be a part of the community and to allow the entire community to benefit. We're not just looking at your new pretty development.
Right. It seems like a lot of the times when this development is happening, right? Me just knowing this, it just doesn't happen overnight, right? It's years of conversations sometimes, right? Maybe even longer. But it seems like once people start seeing it, then more people's like, hold on, what's going on, right? So, what advice would you give community members, right? Or what type of tools or that people can find out what's going on or what may take place before it gets to the point where like hey, we've been talking about years, the plans are made, money has been invested, and there ain't pretty much nothing we can do at this point.
So for my district, you can sign up for my newsletter.
Okay.
Because everything is in my newsletter. All of my meetings are advertised in the newsletter as well as my social media. A lot of other council members are on social media. And they also advertise their meetings. Because like you said, my goal is by the time a development gets to council for that public hearing, there's already been a community meeting. Folks have already met with the developer to hash out any concerns.
Right.
And so that when it's time for the public hearing, there's no one there because it's all been worked out.
Right.
If someone is there at the public hearing, either they didn't pay attention to the meeting notices or didn't know about the meetings, or something's wrong. And that will give me pause and say, okay, maybe I need to go back or connect this person with the developer. It's really about staying plugged in. And like you said, a lot of people, they just don't pay attention until they see the crane or the land being
and then they
cleared
blame
out.
you.
And then
and then they blame you. I didn't get the newsletter or I didn't sign up for it. But like still, it's your fault.
And what's all this development happened? They're just pushing us out, and that's the thing that it can be irritating to see, because I'm very active on social media, so I see a lot of the posts.
Right.
There they go. That's gentrification. They're displacing folks. They're pushing us out. When I know the community has worked on this project to get things that they're comfortable with, so that they can be okay with the project.
Right.
And I also know there have been some projects that have died because the community hated it.
Right.
And so it's always a little irritating when I know that folks who are not tuned in are commenting on things happening in the district when I know the community has been the district has been actively involved.
Do you feel like it's other ways that you can make sure people don't miss that information? Because let's just say, for the sake of argument, like everybody doesn't have social media.
Right.
Everybody doesn't have Wi-Fi or even know how to work emails possibly, right? Have you thought about other ways that you could try to alleviate some of that noise? Because right? Well, we done had 5 or 10 meetings over the years talking about this, but it's always going to be that group of people that say, and they might not even be from your district, right? Which is probably the majority of the time, right? So is there ways to kind of work around it that you thought about to just make sure like you did your due diligence, you checked all of the boxes, like, and I'm comfortable with what's happening because I know it wasn't just me that was a part of this?
So I have a advisory council. So my advisory council has someone from every neighborhood in the district. And so I rely on those folks to kind of spread the word as well as be a point person for questions in their neighborhoods. Without having like a staff that's dedicated to me for council stuff, it's kind of hard to, use avenues like outside of social media.
Right.
You know, when I have rezoning meetings, if you live like within 1,000 feet of the project, you'll get a notice in the mail.
Okay.
Sometimes when it's in the budget, I'll do a call out. So I do try to be creative and use different ways to reach out to people. This spring, summer, I'm going to go out and knock doors and talk to people. And that's not something I can do all the time because that takes a lot of time. But we're at the midpoint of my term, so I want to do that and touch more people. Especially with my district, with there being a large retired population, a lot of them are on social media, but then a lot are not. And so I want to make sure I'm touching those folks as well.
How do you weigh, I guess, the input of people who live in your district, right, and then people who care but don't live in your district?
That is touchy. Because I think the folks who live in my district take precedent.
Okay.
Because they live in the district. Most of them are the folks that voted for me, so I'm representing their voice on the council. I do have folks who they don't live in the district anymore, but they grew up in the area. And sometimes they think they know more than me about, how folks think about different issues. And so there's the balance there where I try to explain to them, where I'm coming from. And sometimes, invite them to a community meeting.
Right.
So they can hear, how the community thinks. And I don't want people, because I represent District 2, but I also represent Nashville.
Right.
So I'm not going to completely discredit you because you don't live in District 2.
Right.
But it's my job to amplify the voices of the folks who live in my district.
Right. And then it's like, 37208, like right across, like right there over the bridge, over across the highway. And so you get a lot of, that is amplified, right? Because of the incarceration rate, the studies, and then it's like, okay, well, we see what's kind of happening over here, so you get some of those. It's all pretty much the same folks. Maybe we went to school together as Japan, and so so that's the amplified people, but all of them are not in District 2.
Right.
So you brought up your term, right? 2023.
2023.
Council members. Like, I think, is everybody kind of
Yeah.
up for election?
We're all up for election, yep.
So I want to make this an emphasis for people. This is, to me, this is like local politics is like this of importance, right? And voting in local government is of the high importance. We got judicial elections happening now.
Yep.
Early voting is April, the voting day is May 3rd.
Yep.
Next year, council members, right?
Yep.
Judges, DA, council members, right? To me, this is going to shape the future of what Nashville looks like.
Right.
You plan on running again in 2023?
I'm going to run again.
Okay, so people know. Plan on running again. And you all are 4-year terms?
4 years.
4-year terms. Yeah, 8 and 4. Judges, DA, all of them are 8 years. Council members is 4 years. What does 4 more years look like with you in District 2? And how do you play a part in the future? Like I think these are going to be like the golden years of what will or what not happen in a lot of different ways in Nashville. How do you play a part in that? And what confidence should people have? Just not only your constituents throughout Nashville, that you are best represent Nashville in a just and equitable way. And really dive into, eradicate some of the systemic issues, policies, housing, all these things that we know that are issues, but we need the right people to use their power and their voice to make sure, like things happen, so we see something different.
Yeah. So I think as far as District 2 specifically, the next 4 years or 5, rather, looks like, for me, seeing through the smart development. So guiding the district through a transition period where, for me, the hope is that it's more revitalization than gentrification. Gentrification is not just when you raise the economic level of an area, it's also when you change the culture of an area. And my goal is to preserve the culture of the area. And like I said earlier, where there are different viewpoints in the district. You have to think that Bordeaux was where, and still is, where your doctors, your lawyers, engineers, all those affluent black folks lived. And so, and then you got, you know, your 37208, where there's a disproportionate amount of black people that live in poverty. And so there's a range of socioeconomic statuses in the district.
Right.
And so I've got folks who, you know, they want to see the high-end stuff that they see in Belle Meade.
Right.
And then I've got folks who want to see more low-income housing.
Right.
And so I have to mesh all of those ideals, and that will be what I would be doing going through into a second term, making sure that the development reflects the desires of the community, so that folks can see that revitalization, see more park space, better infrastructure, more restaurants and retail and entertainment. Also, I'd like to see the community wrap its arms around our schools more. I would like to see more black professionals moving to Bordeaux and North Nashville instead of Belle Meade, Green Hills, and Brentwood. Rebuilding that community that used to be so tight-knit and strong, and that I think can still be that way, and in a lot of ways is still that way. But I think that there are some things that we can do better, like, you know, like I said, wrapping our arms around our community schools, wrapping our arms around, you know, the youth in the community, making sure that they have a pathway to success. And I think that I'm best positioned to lead that conversation and to lead that charge.
There may be some people that, you know, see themselves as future council members of Nashville, right? Young folks that, you know, especially black women, black girls that may see you and say, oh, there's something I might want to do. What advice would you give to those persons here in Nashville that inspires to be a council member in Nashville?
Run. Just jump in there and run. A lot of folks think that oh, I can't raise the money to run. Right. You'd be surprised at how much money you can beg from people. So don't let money be a barrier. Don't let fear be a barrier. If you feel like you have something to offer, then run. Make sure that you are familiar with the issues in your community. Make sure you're talking to different people, not just your friends. Right. Talking to different people in the community who have different opinions about things, right, so that when you do run, you can articulate what you have to offer, right, to the community.
Monte Toombs, I appreciate your time. I want to give you the last word, but I just wanted to thank you for your opportunity, for being here. Thank you for your availability, and opening up and sharing your thoughts about some of the things that's happening here in Nashville and in your district, and what your job is and what you do and what you really don't want to hear, what you do want to hear. Anything else you want to, leave with the folks?
I see a bright future for District 2 and for Black Nashville, and I know that may sound off-putting to non-Black people, but I think that because of the, I guess, historical inequities and how Black folks are disproportionately, have disproportionately have poor health outcomes, poor financial outcomes. When you lift up the Black people, the folks, those marginalized communities, you lift up the entire community. It makes everybody and everything better. Right. And so my goal, just moving forward, is to continue to move the needle for Black people.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and we gotta bring you back. All right, especially during election day, we gotta have you back. All right, so we can go deep into that.
All right.
Thank you.